Welcome to our latest edition of our 76 Capital Leadership Series. And wow, do we have a good show today. My name is Wayne Kimmel, and I'm your host. I'm also managing partner of 76 Capital and chairman of our 76 Capital Sports Advisory business. Our producer today is James Santor, and he's also our chief of staff at 76 Capital. Excited to have him running the controls and making it all happen in the background. So today's guest, we have Adam Caplan, the NFL Insider. Super excited to have Adam. Adam, you can find Adam at Kaplan NFL on Twitter. And he's definitely a great follower, close to 200,000 followers. Let's get him above that 200,000. And it's really exciting to have him on. He's a good friend of ours at 76 Capital, tennis partner of Chad Stender. And super excited to have him and all the things that he's done. And we're going to talk a lot about him and get really the inside story around what Adam has been able to do in his career as an NFL insider. As you all know, at 76 Capital, we're all about investing in smart and nice and passionate entrepreneurs who want to do the next thing in sports. So if you have an idea, if you're an entrepreneur, if you're someone who wants to get into the sports industry, reach out to us, whether that's on LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. We're at 76 Capital across all the different social networks. Also, you can subscribe to our 76 Capital Leadership Series on our YouTube channel, as well as our podcasts. So our podcasts are across all the major podcast networks, whether it's Spotify, Apple, or wherever you get your podcast. And again, my name is Wayne Kimmel, the host of our 76 Capital Leadership Series, and you can reach me at Wayne Kimmel across all social networks as well. So let's get into it today. I want to bring on our really special guest. Super excited to have our good friend Adam Caplan join us on our 76 Capital Leadership Series. Adam, welcome to the show.
Wayne, thank you so much for the invite. And by the way, kudos to your interview with Scott Pioli, who I've known for 20 years. I was blown away by so much that happened in that interview. Folks, if you've not seen it, go to YouTube. As a matter of fact, I think you did say you're dropping a podcast this week, correct?
We are.
Podcast version. So get that as well. And it's a two-parter. And you think you know people. And there were a couple things that happened. I don't want to give everything away here, but there are a couple things about Scott and Bill Belichick I did not know. And trust me, Wayne, Scott, because I don't think he's ever talked about that before, quite frankly.
Yeah, it's really exciting. It was exciting to have him. And one of the things we didn't talk about is another fact that a lot of people don't know about Scott is who his father-in-law is. And his father-in-law is Bill Parcells. So it's really amazing. You know, he has an amazing story. He's part of a really elite group of people within the NFL and just has done amazing things and has won NFL executive 5 different times, won 3 different Super Bowls. But, Scott's the man. And we're here with the man from the media side, Adam Caplan. Adam is known as he's a true NFL insider. You're on SiriusXM of a couple different shows there. You're on Fox Sports Radio. You're on 97.5 The Game. You have a show called Inside the Birds, Philadelphia Eagles podcast with Jeff Mosier, and many, many other things. Does Adam Caplan ever sleep during the NFL season?
Well, no, I don't sleep because I play with Chad Stender, who you know very well. You work with him. And Chad and I play tennis 4 days a week at 7 a.m. So I've become a morning person, which I've never been before. But yeah, look, when you cover the National Football League, the good thing is you're going to have work, but you just don't know where the work's going to bring you, whether it's somewhere across the country or is it could be in your own home. This is my home office. I built a TV studio here as you're watching us today. But the career, the football, thank goodness, Wayne, never stops. And no matter, even with COVID, we're going to have a season, thank goodness. And I'll tell you what, man, without a season, I don't know what I would do. My wife would probably kick me out of the house. So for the first time in 18 years, I did not have a training camp tour because of what we're dealing with. But I did drive locally to some training camps. But, overall, certainly the landscape has changed, Wayne, as you well know in your business, because traveling and flying is something that you have to take care of. And you got to make sure you know what you're doing when you do it. But I decided not to fly. I was home this summer for the first time since 2001, 2002. It's been a little weird. But this is the life that we lead right now in the National Football League, if you cover it.
Yeah, it's really incredible. And Adam, I'd love to go back even further than 2001 and really talk about you and your childhood, where you grew up.
Oh my God, yeah.
Who are some of the, some of the important leaders and things that you've had in your life that have brought you from, where you are to bring you where you are today?
I would say my father. I'm one of four boys. I was the youngest, and the age difference between my brothers and I'm 54, so I have my brothers are in their 60s. One of them is close to 70. My father, who passed away in 2013, my father's probably the smartest human being I ever met. He challenged me. He challenged my brothers and I. He was, I would say, intellectual. And I would say, Wayne, that when you look at his life, he was a builder. The street that I live on, Orleans Road, Orleans is part of my family. They were builders as well. My father and grandfather built custom homes in the 60s and 70s. My father got out of the building business in 1979, I think. He sold to Orleans. He built Valley Glen in Elkins Park. You might, if you live in the Philadelphia area, if you're listening, I know you're from Delaware, but the people are from Philly, just a farm in Northeast Philly. But I had no interest in building. It just didn't. I was a sports guy. I went to Penn Charter, grades 6 through 9, Wayne. I thought I was going to be a jock. I was 6 feet in ninth grade. I thought I was going to be 6'5". I was playing 3 sports. Unfortunately, I had some affliction. I only grew a half an inch after that. So I went to Cheltenham High School. My parents wanted to meet girls. It was all boys, by the way, when I was there in the early 80s. And, of course, 3 or 4 years later, let girls in. Oh, well, I went to Cheltenham. I went to public. I set a family record. I got cut from every sport in 11th grade. So I took up golf, which I played as a kid, and tennis, which I play now very competitively. I needed something to challenge me. I'm like my father. I noticed that about my father, Wayne. I have this affliction. If I'm not challenged, I get stagnant. I get tired. I need to challenge myself. So my dad went back to law school in his early 50s, whereas I was done with school in 1990. I didn't know what the hell I wanted to do. You know, as I look at my career, I knew I went for broadcasting and writing, but this is before the internet. There just were not a lot of opportunities. And I wasn't a great writer. So to move this forward here, in the early 90s, Wayne, I took some sales jobs, job to job to job, not making very much money. I was trying to figure out, what do I want to do? I want to be a play-by-play guy. That's why I went to school. That's what I would do in the early 90s. I was a huge hoops junkie, not really so much as into football as I would later on. Love the NFL, but not as much as I like the Sixers. I was a diehard Sixer fan. When I could get a 10-game mini plan, I was there with friends. We spent every last dollar that we had to go to Sixers games, to have that 10-game mini plan. And what I would do is I would tape all the games, turn the sound down, and do my own play-by-play. It was probably the late Jim Barniak, might have been Andy Musser, the late Andy Musser, who was also the Phillies announcer. I was so addicted to play-by-play. I thought for sure Gene Hart, we all know, growing up, although as a Caps fan, I hate to say that, but I was a Caps fan and a Flyers fan. And the great Merrill Reese, who I would become very friendly with once I started covering the Eagles. But I wanted to sum this up. I wanted to be a play-by-play guy. But then something happened, which I haven't talked very much about before. I started playing fantasy football. I was in a work league. I knew nothing about it. The only thing I played was called rotisserie baseball in the 80s. When I was at Penn Charter, we actually started. You see the ESPN logo, fantasy football logo. So I didn't know anything about this thing. There was no internet, so how could you get information? You would buy magazines. So my nephew Sam Kaplan, who then was probably 16 or 17, who's now 43 years old. It's amazing how time has flown. About 1994, 1995, Wayne, he started one of the first fantasy football services through fax and the internet, right when it started in 95, 96. He goes, hey, you went to school for writing. Do you want to write? I'm like, okay, but what are we writing about? He goes, fantasy football. I'm like, I don't know anything about it. I'm not even good at it. So what do you want me to do? So he said, hey, I want you to write about it. Just give us your thoughts on what you see every week. Tape the games on your VCR. Okay, that's what I did. So I would write about it for Sam, and I started learning about defensive players because in the leagues we were in, we actually had defensive players, believe it or not. I knew that Deion Sanders, Wayne, was not very good for fantasy because no one would throw at him. So I'd write about that. So Sam and my friend John Hantz, who I couldn't stand back then because he was a competitor, Sam. He's the fantasy guru who is probably a top fantasy guy. And you know Matthew Berry very well. I know you know him. I know him as Matt, who I met in 2000. But Sam started a premium service, a pay service. His fax service, his Bible was 300 pages. He would charge like $20, Wayne, for shipping. But the thing was like a manifesto. It was incredible. And I would help him with it. I would help write a player profile. So that got me addicted. I'm a numbers person, so that got me addicted to statistics and somewhat analytics. We didn't know what they were called back then. It was probably analytics. So I got involved with them and helping him. Then his business got acquired by fanball.com, which is in Minnesota, and it was called Fantasy Football Weekly and fanball.com. So I was their news editor, and this is where you come in, Wayne, as a venture capitalist. They had VC money, so this is the internet boom. Spend until you can't. Well, you know what's going to blow up. 2 years later, we all got fired. We all lost our jobs. This is the first time I got laid off in my life. I didn't know what the hell to do with myself. So this is 2000, 2001. As you shake your head, you know what it was like, man, because you're told to spend. They were bringing people from the Vikings because this is a Minneapolis-based company. They're bringing everybody in. So I was one of the first bloggers on the internet. I came up with what you see now, sort of the form of how do you blog fantasy football information. So I was doing that, and I was gathering information. I'm an information gatherer by trade, which I got from my father. Some of the gifts that he left us, my brothers and I, is to always ask questions. So I'm a question asker, and I'm an interviewer really by trade. And I get people to tell me things they really don't want to tell me, but they tell me anyway because they know I'll keep it quiet as a reporter. So I started to gather information. I started to see there weren't a lot of people doing reporting from a high level. I'm talking high level, breaking news and stuff like that. So I became a partner in a website called footballinjuries.com with Jay Glazer, who you know. Jay's a good buddy of mine, and Steve Cohen, who was at WFAN, who was the first producer of Mike and the Mad Dog. And they brought me as a business partner to run their company from an editorial standpoint. And Steve would run the charges. Glazer was our insider. Jay taught me. He was my mentor. You talked about mentors off the air. He was my first mentor in the business. And that's pretty much it over a 12-year period, how it got me there through a lot of failure and learning from your mistakes, which I learned from my father. In self-correcting, I'm probably the best self-corrector in my family because I beat myself up on everything. I celebrate how I get better through failure, not through wins. I try to learn every day. I have the yellow legal pen. I circle everything I screwed up on. That's how you get better.
Well, it's really great to have Adam Caplan, NFL insider, on our 76 Capital Leadership Series. Adam going through his career, beginning of his career, how he really grew up within the media world, which at the time you weren't even sure that you really wanted to be a play-by-play guy, then got involved in fantasy, was very, very early on the internet with sports and fantasy and blogging, have done so many incredible things. And then I believe one of your next steps was going to ESPN, right?
God, yes. So here's what I haven't really talked about before. So in 2007, I didn't know that you needed an agent to interview with ESPN. I was very naive, sort of a neophyte in terms of understanding the business. So, okay, that show right there that you're seeing a video is from myself and John Hansen. That's when I had the Pompadour. Right there is with Ron Jaworski. You can't see him there, but Ron was the host of NFL Fantasy Live. But to get back to my career, 2007, my career started taking off. So ESPN chased me a little bit. I did not have an agent. So I tried to negotiate stupidly my own deal. I'm pretty certain I would have had a deal. It was to be with Chris Mortensen and John Clayton on the NFL side, not the fantasy side, because I was more of an NFL guy than a fantasy guy, though I had fantasy in my background. Yes, that is my picture from 2013 on NFL Insiders. You can see the picture there. Boy, I needed a haircut there. That seems like a COVID hair. But to get back to where I was, so 2007 I interview. I'm trying to negotiate through email, folks. Try not to do that. That was a major mistake. I didn't know what I was doing. So I lost the deal. The guy that I was dealing with got promoted, so I was left hanging. I should have had that deal. If I would have had an agent, I absolutely would have had the deal. 6 years later, this is what happened. So I go to the NFL ownership meetings every year. We talk about making sure you show up. So Adam Schefter comes over. We were pretty staunch competitors. He comes over to me and says, hey, I want to talk to you for a second. I'm sure. He goes, I want you to meet my boss, Seth Markman. I'm like, okay. And he goes, hey, I came up with this concept show called NFL Insiders. What do you think? I'm like, I'm in. He goes, but I haven't told you anything about it. I said, Seth, I get it. I'm in. He goes, but what are you doing in your career? I said, I could get out of it. Don't worry about it. I'm a freelancer. I own my own business. So I'm in. And I was like, and Schefter and Seth looked at me like, are you sure about this? I'm like, yeah, I could do whatever I want. He's like, you better be sure about that. So I was just a paid contributor. And to move this story forward, Seth goes, so I'm doing this. 2013 was the best year of my career. I've got 9 jobs. Okay. You talk about jobs. I'm the only person in the Philadelphia media to have radio shows on both stations. It's complicated, but just to say I could not promote one show over the other. I had to do what they told me, but I actually had a show on the Fanatic and WIP at the same time. So I was contributing to. That's
crazy. Incredible, right? I mean, just thinking about that. I mean, for Philly.
You want to hear how?
Go ahead.
It shouldn't happen, but it happened. So this is what happens when you never say no and you help people and you be selfless. So I have a reputation for never saying no. I don't know why this is. I'm not sure where I got this, but Sal Palantonio gave me some great advice like 15 years ago. He probably doesn't know this. He goes, say yes. You never know what will happen. And I took that advice. I'm like, okay. But you don't want to spread yourself too thin. So what happened there was, so I was working for the Eagles part-time for Dave Spadaro. From a media, I was a media contributor for PhiladelphiaEagles.com. They own their own time through their deal with WIP because the Eagles flagship. But 97.5 The Fanatic and the Eagles offered me a job at the same time to host shows. I'm like, oh God, what do I do here? So I talked to Matt Nahagian, who now is running 95.7 The Game in San Francisco. I said, Matt, hey, just want to let you know that I know I agreed to a deal, but here's the problem. The Eagles offered me the post-game duties. I'm sure you're going to say no, but I just want to tell you, I want to do both, and I have no problem if you say no. He goes, let me think about it. And he calls me the next day, he goes, here's what you have to do. You cannot promote anything of theirs on that show. You don't promote it. Just show up and do it. If the Eagles are okay with it, I'll let you do it. And I talked to Ann Gordon, who was running, she kind of took over everything for the Eagles. She was super cool to me. It was a hard time because my father and father-in-law died within 3 days of each other. And I didn't have an agent. I'm trying to focus on helping my wife because her father died first. No, my father died first. I'm on the air on that Saturday. And I got an offer from IP and the Fanatic, and my dad died on that Saturday. And it was just during the draft. And I'm like, I'm trying to figure out life. I'm like, how am I going to get through this? But I learned something from my father, Wayne. Just don't think yourself, be there for others. And that was the gift that he left me. I mean, it was that 13 year was the most craziest year of my life. I'm sure, I know being a venture capitalist, you've been through some crazy stuff. I couldn't write a book to this. Like you couldn't make it up, the stuff that I was going through. My wife and I lose our parents. And then to move this forward, 1 month into ESPN, Seth Markin goes, bring your playbook and come to my office. I'm like, oh God, I'm getting fired. I just got there. And I'm nervous, but he's laughing. And I stupidly had I worked next to the great Trey Wingo. I was in the NFL Live pod because at ESPN, they don't tell you like who to sit with. You just sit there. I worked out of the newsroom. And Seth's laughing though. See, he was laughing. So he goes, sit down. He goes, remember I told you I'll make a decision in a year whether I want to hire you or not? I'm like, yeah. You're not firing me. He goes, no, I'm hiring you. I said, what do you mean you're hiring me? He said, go get an agent. And I'm like leaning back. I'm like, I don't know what to do. I'm like, so I called 3 friends. I called my buddy Pete Borowski, who's Colin Kaepernick and Marshawn Lynch's financial advisor. I said, Pete, I need your help, man. I'm desperate. ESPN has just offered me to hire me. I don't know what the hell to do. I don't know any good agents. I called every contract agent for NFL players I know. But Pete hooked me up with Russ Spielman, who was, Dave Marilis, who Dave worked for Russ. But the funny thing about, and I love Russ. Russ and I parted ways, but Russ is a great guy. And I'll never forget, Russ turned me down, okay? He turned me down first. And then just like everybody, CAA who called me, once they saw me in ESPN, oh, everybody's calling me. So Russ says, hey, I want to represent you. I said, Russ, here's what you're doing. You have no choice here. You come to ESPN. If you want to work with me, you got to come to ESPN and meet with me. He had Merrill Hodge and 7 or 8 other clients. So he sits down and he goes, I want to represent you. I said, let's get to know each other. I said, I made a mistake with the last guy I hired, that I didn't meet him. I hired him over the phone. That was a major mistake. And I learned my lesson. You got to interview people that you're going to hire. And I interviewed him. Really, he didn't interview me. When I interviewed him, and it was great. He's a super great guy. And what I liked is and I trusted him. What happened was ESPN offered. There was my first deal there, and they made a mistake on the contract. And Russ picked it up, and he goes, "You're not going on TV today." This is like December of 13. He goes, "You're not going on TV. I don't care what they tell you. Do not go. Don't do anything." I said, "Russ, I can't have a holdout. What are you doing?" He goes, "Trust me, this is not the first time it's happened. Be quiet. Don't say anything. I'll take care of it." I'm like, okay. And I'm nervous the whole day. I'm pacing, okay, in the cafeteria. I might get fired before I have a job. So Russ goes, Russ, it was the guy retired, one of the contract guys. It was Al Jaffe. I think it was Al Jaffe And Rob Savarino is the greatest guy. He's their chief contract negotiator. He's a wonderful guy. They changed the language. They post-dated it at first. They wanted me on my per-day salary, which is $700, to my new salary, which is a lot more than that. But they post-dated to January, and we're like, we're not doing 3 months of old salary. And they corrected it, thank God, because Russ, kind of said, you're not going on TV today. And that, I learned a lot about trust. Wayne, you got to have trust in people. You can't just doubt them, but you have to feel like you can trust them. And being that I talked to a bunch of people who Russ represented, including Merrill Hodge, I trusted him to do the right thing, and he knew what he was doing, and you know what? He did.
Amazing story. Amazing story. We have Adam Caplan, NFL insider on our 76 Capital Leadership Series. Adam's going through so many interesting things, including his career at ESPN. And, Adam, you're now involved with so many different things, whether it's on the radio, from the satellite side, from traditional radio stations, to some TV work that you're working on, all sorts of things that you're doing for the NFL season. But one of the things I'd love to get into is how you became a true NFL insider. Like, what does that really mean? And how do you talked about trust. How do you gain the trust of the executives, the coaches, the players, to have them share with you things that maybe they shouldn't be always sharing with reporters, but they feel like they have a good relationship with you and you'll do the right thing? How did you develop that?
All right. So Wayne, you could relate to this, because I remember asking you when we first met 2 years ago, it was a little over 2 years ago, how the hell do you know what companies to invest in? You said we gather information about those people who run those companies or the companies that we want to invest in. I did the same thing. So I got a great tip from Jay Glazer in 2000 when we became business partners. He goes, listen, you got to learn who to trust. Not everybody has your best interest at heart. So make sure you ask the right questions and find mentors in our business, which I did. But he said, make sure that you keep everything quiet and don't say anything. Like, if they help you, they're taking you in and they're trusting you that you're not going to reveal what they told you unless they let you use the information. And being as disciplined as I was with my father, though I'm certainly not perfect, I've made a lot of mistakes in my career, there's certain disciplines that I have. And I learned how to keep something quiet. And that's what I learned from Glazer when he sat me down when we became business partners. He's like, okay, I need to help you. I need to help you become a reporter. I didn't know I'd become an insider. I didn't even know what the hell that thing meant. You just asked about it. Like, how did I become an insider? I didn't even know what it meant. But I noticed something early in my career, Wayne, that there's Chris Brown from the Bills. I started to put some information out that nobody had. But here's the funny thing about information gathering. Schefter could say this, Ian Rappaport, all the national guys, Glazer, myself, anyone you look at, Albert Breer, anyone who does stuff from a national basis. 90% of the information you get, you do not put out there. Believe it or not, like, it seems ridiculous. 10% you use. And it's because you can't put everything out there. I call it shop talk. Like, you could tell me 100 things about your companies, Wayne. You might say, but there's only 2 or 3 things you could use. I get it, but you're trying to give me a background to learn about you. So when I meet Scott Pioli, let me give you an example about Scott Pioli. I meet him at the 2002, the 02 Senior Bowl. Ironically, it's Josh McCown's first. It was Josh McCown's Senior Bowl. Who's now with the Eagles at 41 years old. It was Javon Walker, who was a first-round pick of the Green Bay Packers. I just remember meeting Scott, and I knew they just started to become successful, and he was so kind, and he gave me some good background information, just saying, listen, don't report this, but here's something. So I don't remember exactly what it was, but I was so blown away with. I'm like a nobody, a slappy, as he would call them. That's his term that Thomas Dimitroff and Scott use as a low-level reporter. But he was so kind to me, and I told Scott every time I would meet him, I'm like, dude, I don't care what anyone says. You are so cool, because he trusted me, and that's how you gain trust. You asked me about that. You got to trust people, and I'm known as a guy. I'm like a rock. You tell me something, I will ask you, can I use it or not? But if not, some reporters don't do that. They just foolishly go with it, and guess what? Those teams shut those people out. So I don't burn people. I just don't do it. Another thing is, I don't need to be first. I have to be right. That's the first thing when you become a reporter. I learned that from Glazer. You got to be right. That's the first thing. I've been wrong. I was wrong maybe twice in 4.5 years that I was at ESPN. Well, actually, where was I? I was at ESPN, 4.5 years or so. I was only wrong twice. One of them, unfortunately, was a fairly significant story. But that's the part about me being driven, is I only care about the stuff I got wrong. I don't. It's weird. I have this phobia. Like compartmentalize about the stuff that I got wrong. And it's sort of a issue that I have with myself. I got to stop worrying about stuff. Just celebrate the wins, get better at the losses. But that's how you become a great reporter or a good reporter or anything that you do. Hold yourself accountable. Be your own harsh critic. That was me. I came up with that. When I was failing like crazy in my 90s, I was like, what the hell is wrong with me? Why can't I do well at anything? Because you're not correcting yourself. I had to learn to self-correct. And my wife noticed that about me. Once I started accepting responsibility, I became a better boyfriend or a fiance and a better husband. And stopped being overly sensitive and trying to win every argument. It's not about that. It's about winning together. That's why people like working with me, because I find a way to make it work. I don't have to like everybody personally that I work with or have business deals with. But it's about if I could learn, if I respect them, that's all that matters. I don't have to go have dinner with them. As long as I could find a middle ground, I win and they win. It's about us winning together, find a way to make money together, and not worrying about that this person doesn't see my way of life or politics. I don't care about this stuff. I just care about winning together. And that's why so many people wanted to work with me, because I find a way to make it work, as you say. I love that. Find a way to make it work, win the day, as Chip Kelly once said. I know not everybody likes Chip. I like Chip. Find a way to win a day and lower your list. You can't get everything done in one day. I'll give you an example. I was in John Lynch's office of the 49ers GM. I love this saying he and Kyle Shanahan came up with. You can't win every offseason. You can't win every offseason. You can't. You can't get everything done in one every offseason. You can't. You can't get everything done in one day. That's why I got that legal pad. That's why I write everything down. I'll write something off of what you and I talked about today. It's something that I learned to make sure if it's something I think I could use. I steal a lot of, I'll be honest with you, I steal a lot of great ideas that I incorporate into my career and into my life. I don't copy off of anyone, but Tony Robbins is a guy that I really respected growing up. And just how his life, if you'd study Tony Robbins' life, came from nothing. I love studying people who've been successful. I know you guys do it at 76 Capital. John Powell, his life from Craftco. My dad was a builder. I'm sure John's dad and my father knew each other. They had to, because my dad was a builder. They all seem to know each other, but I try to take what made people successful. You kind of eliminate. I'm a big eliminator of stuff that doesn't work, and I kind of refocus and renumber what's important and throw away the rest and figure out what's going to work for me.
Great pieces of advice, Adam. Really appreciate that. And one of the things that's happening right now is there's so many new things that are happening, right?
Technology,
there's so much innovation and technology that's happening within the media industry. Let's specifically talk about that, right?
Sure.
In your world, right? And how things have changed, right? From when you first got started to where you were an innovator from the internet perspective, but where things are today, how much has changed, and what is it like to be in it? And then maybe even following up on that is the fact that what's the difference for someone who wants to get into the industry today as compared to when you first started?
Yeah, so I got a piece of advice. I don't know exactly who it was from, to be versatile. It was somewhere after I was finished school. It was like, okay, there aren't a lot of jobs out there. You're going to have to diversify your portfolio. You got to do other things. You can't just be a reporter, or you can't just be a play-by-play guy. I'm like, okay, all right, I'll do that. I'll learn to do other things. So the internet and so forth, I did that. I could write, I could speak. I did one of the first podcasts. It was actually called Real Audio. All right, you brought up technology. This is how crazy it was. In 1996 and 97, my nephew Sam and I did our own fantasy football show on the internet. I was the one who mixed it. I was the one who was responsible for getting up there. So your podcast, which will take you 30 minutes to get on the internet, it took me 7 hours, okay? But I was dogged. I was like, this is getting up there. I'm getting it up there. And it would crash and all this. But to answer your question, I did every media you can do. I was always into technology. So, you guys at 76 Capital, and I was at your event 2 years ago, which I spoke at, the wearable technologies, the shot tracker. I was in every technology. I couldn't have enough of this stuff. I was the first person to get the $900 phone, stupidly. Whatever Verizon had, I would get it. I got the StarTAC. I had to have the StarTAC, folks. If you're old enough, if you're over 40, you know the StarTAC. I was crazy. I had the pager. I had the ESPN phone, which sucked, by the way. It is what it is. They admitted it, by the way. I'm not criticizing them. I love ESPN. I have friends who still work there. I'd go back in a second. But I got every technology you can get because I want to be on the cutting edge, just like you guys are at 76 Capital. That stuff is so important to me. I don't know where I got that though. That's the thing. I was just because I'm a curious guy by nature. I want to know what's out there. You ask what, it's kind of like what inspires you? Technology. Like when I went to your thing with David Stern, when I saw David Stern talk at your event last fall at Lincoln at Citizens Bank Park, to hear all the people talk about technology and the sports betting, what's out there. Not that I'm into gambling, but I want to know what's the next big thing. And that's why I love what you guys are doing. I'm so interested. I couldn't really get involved with gambling. Not that I bet, but I couldn't get involved in being paid to talk about it until my rule is when it becomes legal, I'm going to do it. That's what I told you guys when I was at your event 2 years ago. I can't really talk much about it because I made it an agreement. I know the NFL is very watchful for reporters who are talking about gambling, but I want to know like DraftKings, what are they doing? FanDuel, VSiN. I'm working for a company now called Sports Grid. What are they doing? I want to see that information and how it's disseminated. That has significant interest to me because I'm an information person. I'm a numbers person, analytics person. I want to know how you get the information, how you disseminate it, because it makes me better at what I do in terms of information gathering and opinion and reporting. That's why I'm so interested in technology. I want the next best thing that there is. I love wearables, which is big now in the National Football League, especially for speed. And you guys, I know, are big into the wearables for baseball and basketball, which I've seen.
Yeah, absolutely, Adam. That's an interesting thing. I mean, as truly being an NFL insider, talking to the executives, talking to the coaches, the players, the trainers, what are some of the things that you're hearing that they are using from a technology perspective that they maybe hadn't used in the past that today is a really big part of their lives?
Huh. Well, guess what? Temperature gauges with what we have going on COVID. Remember, for years, if you go back, for those of you who are over 40, might remember Corey Stringer, unfortunately the offensive lineman for the Vikings who passed away. There was no wearable technology. There were no ways to measure your temperature immediately. So I remember like 7 or 8 years ago, it's the first time I'd ever seen this because I go to training camps every summer, and I saw them measuring temperatures of players. I'm like, how the hell are they doing this? They're just putting it right up to them and measuring their temperature. They're getting instant feedback. And then 3 or 4 years ago, I noticed teams are putting trackers in shoulder pads of players, which is something I talked about at your event 2 years ago in Philly. And the wearable technology is major for speed. There's no question about it. You could do that in college football, but particularly now in the National Football League, they want to be able to measure your speed in different ways than one. And tracking now speed is huge for executives, and that to me, to answer your question, that is the big thing in the National Football League is wearable technology. It's only going to get better, by the way. And also with analytics, you see all the information out there. Pro Football Focus, so many of the different technologies. My friend Warren Sharp, who's tremendous, who's also a gaming guy, but his analytics are unbelievable. Sharp analytics are unbelievable. The minutia, and you see it, by the way, for sports betting, be able to bet in quarter. Well, if you could have the information, again, I don't bet. I wouldn't do it anyway because it's a conflict of interest, but I'm so interested in it because it fascinates me. If you could get that feedback immediately about, okay, you're 2 months in, now you have enough information. What is that team in the first quarter of in the NBA? What kind of first quarter team are they? Do they start off sluggish? Are they terrible on the road? You need that instant information, and I know that companies you invest in clearly have that, and that's what people want in the National Football League. Coaches want to know. The coaches, by the way, that don't want this information, they're never going to win. The coaches that want to run the football all the time and don't want to throw the football, where it's at is throwing. Analytics tell you that. You got to be cutting edge. You got to be on the edge. And the coaches like Kyle Shanahan, Doug Peterson. By the way, Bill Belichick could say whatever he wants. Ernie Adams is his guy for analytics. Trust me when I say this. When Bill Belichick goes for a 4th down at the zone 25-yard line in a big game against the Colts several years ago, it's because that's based on analytics. Trust me on that one.
Oh, wow. We're here with Adam Caplan, NFL insider on our 76 Capital Leadership Series. Not only a great friend, but someone who's so dialed into everything that's happening within the NFL. We're getting ready to start the 2020 NFL season. And if anything goes like the 2020 year has been so far, it's going to be a wild one. But I think, Adam, I got to ask you,
Sure.
What are some of if you could give some tips or some ideas to some of our listeners and viewers on maybe from a fantasy perspective, some sleeper picks that they should be thinking about, and maybe even your MVP pick of the year would be great to hear.
Oh boy. All right. Let's start with the latter, fantasy. I would say a couple guys that I really like. Jonathan Taylor, the Colts running back, was the second round pick out of Indianapolis. Frank Reich, their head coaches, they're going to be more of a run based team than they were in Philly. Taylor's going to wind up taking the starting job. He is terrific. Marlon Mack's a good football player. He's a draft pick from years ago. He's on the last year of his deal with the Colts, but they drafted Taylor to be their starting running back. I love him. A late round pick would be Rashad Perriman of the Jets. His knee should be okay. He was their top free agent signing at wide receiver. He's going to have a big year. Chris Herndon, the tight end from the Jets, also. I like. You see Adam Thielen. I like him to bounce back. Robert Woods, number 17, who you see in your picture. I absolutely love him for fantasy as a second receiver. Number 33, my friend Lee Steinberg's player, Aaron Jones. Aaron Jones, who's a sort of a low-end number 1 fantasy back, high-end number 2. I like him if you're picking early in the second round, late in the first round in that area. That's Mike Gesicki, number 86 of the Dolphins, I believe, who's headed for a breakout season formerly of the Dolphins. And Kareem Hunt, I know from talking to the Browns, they love him. He will probably be their main third down back for the Browns. He's more of a mid-round pick. But Thielen, I like to bounce back big time. He's in the prime of his career. He had a hamstring injury, Wayne, last season. I expect him to bounce back. Also, just a couple other guys that I think certainly would be sort of some late round, sort of mid-round picks. DJ Chark of the Jaguars. They're going to be a bad football team. They're going to throw a lot. He's going to have a breakout season. Great kid, by the way. I had a chance to talk to him at training camp last summer. I look forward to him breaking out. Those are just some of my breakout players. Follow me on Twitter at Kaplan NFL, and on the Sirius XM channel at 87. When I'm on there Tuesdays and Fridays, we talk fantasy only. And I'm on channel 88 quite a bit. That's the NFL channel, as you see there. And you see that little inset there, that little circle. I wonder what story that was. What was it? I broke a story. Some guy who had a contract for $46 million. I don't even remember. I just took a picture. I just thought I was on the tracker. When you break a story, you get on the ESPN ticker. And that is, by the way, that picture right there. I don't collect autographs. I collect unique things. In my studio here behind me, I have a cardboard cutout of 6 feet of Ron Jaworski and Joe Flacco, who I've known since 2007. And that picture right there is from 3 weeks ago at training camp at the Eagles. I just like that picture. It just shows me footballs back with those footballs from that leather Wilson bag. Don't ask me why. I'm a little bit odd with things that I like. But again, I'm not an autograph seeker. I only own one autograph. It's from the late, great Tony Gwynn. In 1982, going to the vet. He was my favorite baseball player. This is before magazines, really. And I knew I followed minor league baseball, and he was my hero, him and Hank Aaron. And Tony was so gracious. I said, I walked down to the railing. He said, after BP. And I'm like, he won't come over. He remembered after BP. He came over and signed that autograph, and I still have it, the only autograph that I own.
So I have to ask you, being a Philly guy, and
yeah,
when the Eagles won the Super Bowl, and you're reporting on it, you're covering it. How do you do that? How do you kind of keep your
You're not gonna believe this. You're not gonna believe this. So I don't go to the game ever, although I kind of wish I would have gone to that one. I'm not a fan of any Pittsburgh team. This actually comes into my job. This is an adjunct to what you would ask me. Once you cover the National Football League full time, you forget about being a fan. There's just no way you can't, because you have too many friends on every team. I just root for people. Though when it was with the Patriots, I didn't really know too many people with the Patriots for that particular year. I was rooting for all my friends who were Eagles season ticket holders. My friend Darren Morgan, I don't know if you know Darren, who was my first agent, who represented Moby Okoye. He's a good buddy of mine. He's an Eagles season ticket holder, he and his friends. And my friend Dave Spadaro and Harry Roseman and all the people with the Eagles. Oh, I know my good friend Joe Banner was rooting for them, despite what people think. Joe actually loved the Eagles after he left. He absolutely wanted them to win. And I was happy as a Philadelphian, Wayne, as you asked me that. I was so happy for those people. All the people who are late in life, who they could finally breathe and say, your team got it. They got that Super Bowl victory. I'm so happy. But here's the funny thing. So, again, I don't go to the game. So the night before, on an empty flight, me, my friend, Andrew Brandt, and Sean Landell, the former Eagles punter, and about 5 or 6 other people, we all had our rows. We could sit anywhere we want. I remember Sean and I talking about how lucky the Eagles were, because everything that Howie touched that year, he and Joe Douglas in 17, particularly in free agency, and you see Nick Foles there, and Torrey Smith, who I know a little bit, everything worked. And that's what happens when you I remember calling someone in their front office and at the trade deadline in 17. And this is a great story. I've really not talked about this before. I remember talking to someone high in their front office. I said, hey, I know you weren't expecting this, but are you going to do anything at the trade deadline? Well, this person said, that's actually what we're talking about. Are we as good as our record would indicate? Because if it is, we got to go for it. And that's when they traded for J.H.I. So sometimes in life, when you have to be your own harsh critic, and you also have to evaluate yourself and be honest. Are you as good as you think you are? If you are, spend a little bit more money. If you're not, pull back and say, you know what? We got lucky. We're going to build towards next year. And Howie and Joe Douglas went for it in a big way with that J.J. trade. And I'll tell you what, they really needed him in 2017. Wow.
Some great insight and some amazing memories for many of us from the Philadelphia area of that Super Bowl win the Eagles had. We're here with Adam Caplan on our 76 Capital Leadership Series. And as we wrap up here, maybe you have a little bit of inside information as to who do you think the best teams in the NFL this year are, and who will be in that Super Bowl this year?
Oh, boy. All right. So last year I got it right. I had two sleeper teams. I had the Titans and the Niners. Now, the Titans I picked to win the AFC South. I didn't get that right, but they played against that team and Patrick Mahomes in the championship game. I did pick the Chiefs to win the Super Bowl. I did pick that. I had the Chiefs Eagles in the all Andy Super Bowl. That didn't happen. But Wayne, can you imagine if it would have been Andy Reid versus the Eagles? You know how insane it would have been? Oh, my God. That could happen this year. You never know. But I would say right now, and I turn my picks on Thursday or Friday, but I'm going to pick the Chiefs to get back. And I'm going to pick the Chiefs Saints. I'm a little bit worried about some of the Eagles' injuries. Chiefs Saints in the Super Bowl, although the Saints didn't get Clowney, Wayne, but the Eagles are going to be very good. The hometown team is going to be very good at probably 11-5. They're a little bit better in Dallas. They're tight, though. That's going to be a great race between Dallas and Philly. Do you know that we have not had a repeat division winner? I believe the numbers in the NFC East since 2003, which it's either 03 or 04, but that's just crazy that we haven't had a repeat winner. So my MVP, you asked me earlier, that's a tough one, man. I want to go for Mahomes because he was hurt last season, but I'm gonna go for Patrick Mahomes to get it back. They won. I mean, they won the Super Bowl, but he was injured last season. I'm gonna pick Mahomes. That's a layup for me. No one's been able to stop him. I don't know how you stop him because every defensive coach I've talked to said you can't box this guy in. He's unbelievable.
Yeah, well, amazing picks, amazing thoughts, amazing insight from Adam Caplan, the NFL Insider. You can follow Adam at Kaplan NFL. Again, we got to get him above that 200,000.
Yes, help me out.
Let's get him there. Watch his shows this year on TV. Listen to his the many different shows that you're doing on the radio and on satellite, as well as your podcast as well with Jeff Mosier. So, Adam,
thank you. We have two big announcements to make. I can't because we have not signed contracts, but we have some agreements that we're going to talk about, and one's going to be on television. So I look forward to announcing that in the next 3 to 5 days. I really, Wayne, thank you very much. From your people at 76 Capital, I appreciate your friendship. I'm very grateful for it. And have a great 2020 NFL season, everyone. It's going to be fun.
Absolutely. You too, Adam. Thank you so much. And for my producer, James Santor, myself, Wayne Kimmel, thank you for watching our 76 Capital Leadership Series. And again, thanks to Adam Caplan, NFL Insider. Watch him, follow him, listen to him. You'll learn a lot. You can also follow everything that we do at 76 Capital on LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, as well as YouTube, and subscribe to our podcast as well. Thanks, everyone, and have a great day.